that, we're town government. Following the procedure sounds much more like what it should.
Like we should be saying, right?
Okay, we're recording.
It's just, this is nice. Who said that?
I will call this meeting to order for March 4th, 2019. It's now 6:01. It's a budget workshop. And there's no public, so we won't have any public participation. And I will consolidate to the other end of the table.
As a starting point, is it proper for us to have a target? You know, we're talking about budgets here. We haven't gone very far down the list, but shouldn't we kind of know where we're headed? You know, we've got some big numbers in here, and Amy was telling us, you know, what the numbers look like with and without the Warehouse Point Fire District number in there.
Right.
But there, with or without it, it's still a big number.
Well, it is, and I, at the beginning, I passed this out, and basically what it says is that, you know, like 1% of the budget would be about $180,000. And we've got to do these three things. Health insurance, maybe increases in so much.
It is not, it's now 12.89%.
It's what?
12.89.
And so I had 115,000 here, so. And then contingency, we're thinking of putting 100,000 in because of salaries. 27 payroll is 24,000, so it seemed like there was 239, about 240 that we need to put in. Well, that's about 2%, maybe a little less. There's new positions that they put up. People have asked for, and they did a very good job in this sheet saying what they're going to cost the town.
Now, you guys should have all gotten that sheet.
And we can Xerox it.
I have it.
I don't have this one.
All right, let me go
No, I
Xerox.
have copies of it.
Okay, and then these are all increases here.
Yep.
And so, and there's one increase of the fire department.
Yep.
But even without the fire department, there's over $1 million
Yep.
worth of increases. And that brought also, that was the new employees who took it out. So,
Yep.
so really, and then the final thing
You have
is,
to get one to
if
pay.
you, what you came in with was a 12% increase.
For you, for me, Andy.
You came in with the 12%, that's everything, we haven't touched a thing. If you cut off the things that, the increases here, you can end up with a 2.1%. If you leave the fire department in, you'll end up with a 5%. But
So my question is, as a board, where do we want to be? Do we want to be at 2? We want to be at 3, 4, 5?
well, I want the fire department in there, so I want to be at 5. But maybe you guys would want to put a position in there, want to hire somebody. So we have to talk about that. So I'd say we go through every department and cut where we can.
Personally, my target is 2%.
Okay, no fire department.
Without the fire department? Because the fire department's about 3 on its own.
Yeah, I'm not to that part yet.
Okay.
But I'm saying 2% without that because, you know, the salary increases are how much? What's the projection?
Oh, yeah, well, we put it in a contingency, 100,000, yeah.
So is that 100 in that number you just had there? the 2%?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a 2%.
So
Yeah,
that's,
no.
you know, stuff is.
The number I had here, like 2% is about, about 360?
I was going to say, I think 1.5 is
239.
239, and 3 is 478.
Okay, so 2% is
Somewhere around 3?
100, I think it's 360.
Well, 159 is every 1%.
All right,
Because it was, last year's budget was 15,946,000.
okay.
So $159,000 is every 1%. So
Is
160.
how much?
160?
160, so it's 320.
Yeah.
So 2% is 320. And
This
this, so these things that we feel that we have to take into account is 240, so that leaves 80,000 we could put in and end up at 2%.
So the Board of Ed's not in that number, right?
No, we're assuming 5% for Board of Ed.
No, Board of Ed is 8.6 now. So it's in our numbers here. If you looked on the bottom, when we got to that 10.19, I think we were at
Yeah.
the very bottom, that had the Board of Ed at 8.6, which they approved. So that's an approved number. That's the number going forward to the Board of Finance.
Okay.
And then when we were talking 320 and at 2%, that was just for the
That's just the
government
town side.
Yeah.
That's just our $16 million budget.
Okay.
So our budget last year was just shy of 16 million. It was 15,946,958. That's what was voted on and approved at the May referendum.
Okay.
So that's where I did my percents off for the increase.
Yeah.
1% off that is $160,000.
Okay.
So right now, this 10.19 includes an 8.6 for the Board of Ed, which is a $2 million increase. But that was voted on and approved by the Board of Ed already. So we're working on these two pieces. We have both our budget piece, which right now we're going, some of these two is the 946. That's the number we just talked about. That's last year's budget. That gets us our 160 for each 1%. Those two numbers now are 17,946, which is just shy of a $2 million increase, or 12.54%. So if you want that to be somewhere around 320 without the fire department, we need to cut like 1.3 million out of it, which would include parts of CIP and parts of the town.
Yeah, and that CIP is, you have a $624,000 increase in CIP, so.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's the way it is, which is.
Which unfortunately affects our piece. Even though it's both, I kind of don't like that that's how the town here does it. In Canton, we used to do town government, debt service, CIP, and Board of Ed all separate.
Okay.
So when we talked about town government, because the CIP is really both. I will say the bulk of it is the town.
Yeah.
A lot less portion is the Board of Ed, but it does cover projects for both.
Right.
So that's how we did it, but that's not how you guys do it here. So when you voted on your total town government budget last year, it was 15,946,958, which includes both the operations and the CIP.
Let me ask you on the fire department, if that, moves forward with that, do you pay the bills or you?
No, they're just getting a check, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to come up with some kind of agreement, and Board of Finance said they will not keep it in there without you guys coming up with some kind of agreement. And I don't know if Bob came back and talked to you guys about it, but because some of the biggest concerns are, if we give them $464,000, first of all, Broadbrook returns money every year. We don't have that chance. If we've written a check to Warehouse Point, that money's not coming back.
Right.
So even though they say it makes it even, it doesn't necessarily make it even, because Broadbrook will return what they don't spend.
Have you idea how much that is?
$12,000.
That's what they returned last year?
Yeah.
So,
And you could put that in an agreement if you wanted to. Like you could say that next year.
yeah, but they're counting on that money. If they're offsetting, that's my
That's
other
true.
concern is,
Yeah.
something in the writing that says they're gonna reduce their tax bill by the money we're giving them.
Yeah.
So if they budgeted, they were gonna bill for $600,000 of taxes last year, and we give them $464 of it, I wanna see something that says they're only gonna bill for the other $140,000 they're short.
In fact, I got that agreement in my office. I sent it to
A new agreement?
Yeah.
Oh, you got one, okay,
Well, they gave me one. I sent it to Bob Pizzazzo.
okay,
And he was supposed to get it back to me today. And see it yet.
okay. Well, maybe by
When we get-
Thursday. Well, maybe by Thursday, but anyhow, so
I don't
those are
think
my
we need
concerns.
tonight,
Well,
but-
No,
My
but-
first one
well, but-
is that we get some kind of agreement that says they're gonna give us back money if they have a surplus, or that's a shortfall for next year for them.
Yeah,
Because
that's
if they
what I
haven't
would
billed
say.
for it, we gotta figure out how they return it at some point. The other thing is, the structure right now is, we pay them 100% of their revenue in the summertime. Collection is all on us. So if we have somebody not pay, that's a town problem. They get 100% of whatever they build.
Oh, really?
So they have no allowance and no collectability.
But in the
They-
last 3 years, it's worked out fine.
It has. It's led to a surplus of a couple $1,000s each year because we keep the interest in the liens tied to it.
Okay, what about where somebody doesn't pay it? Yeah.
It becomes part of Patty's, how she deals with all the taxpayers.
Right, right.
Liens
You know how
and-
much that is?
I do not.
Be interesting to know how much
I'll make it up.
It's not a lot.
it is. I don't know if it's material or it's not material, but if somebody objects to the assessment, and I don't even know how that procedure looks.
Well, yeah, well, that would be, they're not paying their taxes basically, but that would only be like $150, maybe $300, depending. So it's not a big chunk, but then Patty goes after them. They have to start paying fines and.
Right, I understand all that, but is there some part, you know, like the other day when we were here, that Helen spoke about those that it reduced the grand list
Yeah.
because, you know, they.
How many of those are tied to fire?
Yeah, that they won to that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's in there or not in there.
Well, yes, it would be impacted because the one assessment covers everything.
Yeah,
So when they get the assessed value from Helen,
yeah,
that's for everybody, whether it's regular taxes or fire taxes. So yes, that would impact
you
them.
should know that.
Yep.
Okay. So going back, in my opinion, we should have a target of 2%, and then fire is in addition to that. That's what I'm thinking.
The fire, that 450 for the fire department, in addition to that,
Yeah.
that's 3%.
Yeah,
That brings us to 5%.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it brings us to somewhere around 800,000. So that gives you about 1.2 you need to cut.
Okay.
Okay. So I'd say we have to cut everything that we can, basically.
Well, if you go to the CIP, how much is in there?
Not 624,000 of
An
it.
increase, that's just.
That's an increase.
Yeah.
That's the increase. They have a total of 1.6 million in there. 95,000 can't be cut because that's the leases.
Okay.
But everything, the 1507 was everything else.
So if we take the 624 out,
A lot of that was road work also, wasn't it?
Yeah, and,
500,000.
yeah, and.
But that wasn't an increase, I don't think. Didn't they get 500 last year?
No, it was, you're right, I think it was a 225 increase, and they got,
No, that's in your operating budget.
okay.
I got it right.
Do you have last year's CIP? They would be on the top section, the first page. There should be the 75, there should be the 75 for chip sealing.
which rolls back into their money, right? When the state reimburses.
Well, it actually, it and things offset each other, so it doesn't really roll back into their money. The money comes in, the 75 gets spent, so the 500 is really all they have to spend. But we have to talk about that anyhow, because they're not necessarily happy with chip sealing at all. So we have to talk about whether we make that crack sealing or whether we make that a road project. Which we'll talk about roads, because there is a huge increase in here tied to the road money for operations. He has to get about 275 because we get 267 in tar money. I don't know how much you guys know about government money, but when they give us our grants, if we looked on the revenue sheet, Town Aid Road is a piece of it. It's like $267,000. They have to have that in the operating budget because we have to prove to the state that we spent it.
Okay.
So their operating budget can't fall below the 275 that's in there now,
And that's for what now?
Town Aid Road.
Okay.
So that's in that road budget. He has it going from 275 to 500 in the operating budget.
Yeah.
But the 275 is the minimum number that needs to stay in there because we get state money to offset it.
I thought the chip sealing did some good this year when they did it.
I think it does. say-
Compared to the prior year,
But,
within a week. it
I
was
guess
all-
that's everybody's own opinion, but
yeah.
we went to crack sealing in Canton instead of chip sealing.
Yeah,
On the CIP this year, he's really got a couple of road coating type job. He's got chip sealing at 75,
Yep, that's the LoSiP money. And then the next one below that is what?
500,000.
It's 500. So see, that 500 is standard.
And that's
He asked for
called,
a
and that's
million,
called annual maintenance.
but he still only got 500.
Yeah.
Yep.
CIP last year was, and it says here, it was 883,000.
Yeah, the 977
Yeah.
includes the 94 for the leases. There's two pieces.
Yeah, right.
So that same 977 gives you the 94 for the leases plus the 883. I think it's 883, right?
Okay,
I think it's 883.
yes, it is.
Yep, that was the CIP number.
Okay.
It doesn't give you the same projects, obviously,
No,
because as a matter of fact, I don't even think that covers the ones on the top part of the list. I think the top part of the list
no, I
was
think the
1
883
million
last year
and
did.
24. Yeah.
So,
No, it sounded like last year it got cut too, and it happened to be that the Board of Ed got Alliance capital grant money, so they were able to eliminate all the Board of Ed projects and had enough for what the rest of the stuff they wanted to cover. So,
You know, in Ellington, a couple of years ago, they had this process to resurface the road, and what it was this huge flamethrower.
Oh, yeah.
That melted the road, and then they rolled it afterwards and everything.
what kind of process is that called?
I don't know, but it
I've
was.
never even heard
we
of
did
it.
that here too. It is in a sense a huge flamethrower, but another way to look at it is like a big truck that's very low to the ground. It shoots the flames out and melts the road.
There's
Does
a
it
little,
work?
little detail though that
Yeah.
the part that didn't work is where they went, the road that they went, all the trees were burned up. The edge of the road to the top of the trees. Shrubs and people's yards,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
that went out, they're all smoked.
Yeah. We
Did
did
we
it
have
on
that
Newberry.
problem? Did we have that problem too?
Not so much, because there's not many trees around in Newberry, so.
Oh, that's where they did it?
Yeah, yeah, I love it.
How'd they think it worked?
Well, I guess you asked Glenn, but they said it was okay.
I didn't think it worked good over there, because the second year was all cracks again.
So we should get going, huh? On the next one's the treasury.
Well, actually, we're going to go back to
So we
mine
have
again.
to share you a little discussion on Bob's that we had with his staff after we got back. This $2,000, in their contracts, are each entitled to $1,000. So if you cut it to $2,000, it will leave none for your new selectmen or first selectman. That will be here in November. So that's the only concern about dropping that to 2.
Could you just repeat what you said, that what?
Their contracts, both Melissa's and Amanda's contracts, allow them $1,000 a year for education reimbursement.
Yeah.
So by cutting it to 2 from 3, you leave your first selectman no dollars or any new selectman. So anybody who wants to go to any kind of education or training
Yeah.
is not going to have any dollars to do it. Because those are, the 2,000 is the committed amount.
Although, I don't know if Amanda and Melissa will use them.
And clearly they're not right now because at least this year they're at 664, so. So I just wanted to share that after we had the conversation with them. So, and they have been using it, the whole 3 up until here. This is the first year that they didn't use all of it, and this year they're clearly not. And Amanda is not in school currently.
She's got to go back.
And do they have any plans to?
She does.
To use more than the 68.4?
Not this year, but she plans to go back in the fall. So she won't have any money. So we'll have a return this year from that because she's not going to spend, she might have small classes to go to, like one-day seminars and stuff, but she's not actually going to college right now. But she has finished her associate's, she has finished her HR certificate at Central.
Right.
So now she'll be working on her bachelor's.
Yeah, she'll be going to Manchester. She won't be going to Central.
Do you think we have to have money in there for educational programs for a selectman? Your experience?
I'd say no, but I don't know who the new selectman's going to be at all.
So anyhow, we can go on. I just wanted you guys to know that.
Okay.
So you had all the facts before you went forward. Okay. Town clerk, we did. Treasurer's next, yes. So, a little story about my part-time. it's supposed to be shared with tax. Tax was gonna take it all because they've been using it all. That person has now quit. So I don't know if we wanna look for a new person to be a forced chair again. So that puts us both at 9.5 hours again. But I'm sure Patty will tell you that's not, wouldn't be her wish. She wants to keep the extra hours benefit eligible person in there. in
Well,
hers.
I just going back to that, when Patty offered this person the job, she said that the person was going to get 20 hours a week. That's right. And, well, that bumped it over 1,000, so that would make her eligible for pension and health insurance, and so we said no, 19 hours a week, and she didn't want, she had promised the person that, so she felt very uncomfortable. So, but now, if the person's left, I think we can go back to 19 hours a week, or under 1,000.
Still shared with her only getting 9.5 of it, I guess is my other concern,
Yeah,
is that if I'm gonna pay for somebody's hours, I want them working for me.
well, that's true.
I mean,
I think.
and I could use somebody, it's not like I couldn't use anybody, between all these spreadsheets and long-range planning
Why
and
don't we
uniform
do the
chart of
split?
accounts,
Okay,
so leave it like it is now.
With the split.
Okay, so then mine doesn't need to change, because mine is the exact same 19 hours a week for 9.5 of my share. So that would be the number that would need to go in Patty's number also.
okay.
And Patty's number is up to a full half.
Well, she took her 9.5 and doubled it, taking mine
Yes,
and
right.
added to that.
And you
So-
accounted for it over there.
So she now has, we go to her, she now has like $20,000 in that line. So if we make it 9.5 each, then this number can go back to the 8,340, which mine is.
Yep. I think we should.
Okay, why don't you do that, yeah, make it yellow, that 1840.
Yes. Maybe.
And where does it get accounted for? In your budget or you?
Well, we'll be half, it will be half and half
The right
again.
way.
It will be half and half again.
Okay.
And what I'll do is, I want a hand in hiring whoever we hire so that I know they know how to do Excel.
Mhm.
And when they're working for me, they can work on things that are helpful for me.
It should be joined by.
Yeah. So I will also saying that this time. All right, so that leaves that number the same for me. So really, the only thing in here, this has my increase, which is contractual come July 1. Professional services, I think that one's a little bit up, but that's just the fee for doing payroll for the whole town. And the only extra is this little bit's tied to both, Gail and I both have to have CEEs. She needs, I think she needs 30 CEs for my CPA. I need 40 CPEs. So some of them we can get together at the same classes, and that's what we did last week. We wrote together, you'll be happy about that. So my big one was my travel that changed, and I think we can probably change it back because we did take the town car, it worked just fine. The new policy changes the mileage too, that you guys put in place. So I think we would be fine if you put that back.
The professional services, is that the vendor charge that went up?
Yes, that's only vendor in there. That is just the cost of doing everybody's payroll, all our town employees. Because Paylocity, we pay Paylocity, and it just happens to come out of our budget.
Does that seem like the right number? Is that the right company to do that?
Well, apparently they had, I don't know if they had ADP or Paychecks before, but they really didn't like them. And they really do like Paylocity. I don't have enough, I've never used the payroll service in Canton, and we processed our own. We did not have somebody process it for us. But here, with one person doing AP and payroll, there is no way. I have a lot less staff here than I had in Canton. So, and that was about the cost it was gonna be for Canton too, which is about the same size town, when we checked with ADP.
Okay. Assessor.
Assessor. She's really got, her only changes in her professional services, and I think this year she did a great job breaking it out of what it is, all the different pieces. Personal property evaluations or appraisals, She has all hers broken out. She wasn't really sure what was in last year's number. Clearly, they overspent it last year. They spent $12,871. So that's her big increase in her other places, education and dues, and she's trying to get her assistant through her classes. So it's just an increase there and an increase in the mileage, which they've already blown through this year also.
I have no problem with that one.
Okay.
Tax collector, you brought that back to a halftime.
I did.
Yeah, I know.
9.5 hours a week. 8430. I just want to make sure I put the right number in there. No transposition is a bad thing in my job. Okay.
So
8430.
nowhere in the summation of the budget, you charge benefits as the increase.
To anybody?
Well, I mean, as a total of the budget, is it?
Yes, it's in a bunch of places.
Okay.
So this increase will be part of FICA, which will have to change. So there will be some extra changes. So instead of this going up 10,000, so we could do 7.65
Okay.
on 10 and know that that needed to be adjusted. And as a matter of fact, that sheet I gave you guys will be a good place for us because I spelled out the FICA on each of them. So we can then take it out. The health insurance, if we have anybody who's health insurance eligible, that's going to be there. That number's there for that position.
Okay.
So we'll be able to adjust those too.
Now, what's the,
So she still, the other thing she has is professional services.
That went up pretty dramatically, didn't it?
Yes, and she said that it was something that used to be in IT, but I don't see a corresponding decrease in IT. And what it is it's the actual folding and mailing of the tax bills. Apparently, she used to charge them all to Joe in IT, which I'm not quite sure why. That wouldn't have been how it was done. We would have split out the pieces. The postage goes to the postage line. The office things would have gone to tax, and then the IT things actually used to come to finance because I paid for her tax software.
Is that
Yeah.
a vendor, Sharon?
Yes, it's QDS who processes their bills for them.
Okay.
I mean, she did spell it all out in her pages. I think that was one of the ones that I handed that to you guys last time because the pages weren't, the detail wasn't provided to you guys in the original one because it was each a separate tab. No, I didn't have it. If I didn't give it to you, I have it. Tax had actually done a separate tab for each change. And somebody didn't notice that when they were printing. Everybody else, no, they're here. Everybody else put them all on one page for us. And she put them on separate tabs. So the detail that she was talking about when she was in front of you, you guys didn't have, that now has it all. So if you look at her professional services, which is the fourth, the fifth page. Oh, it doesn't equal this number. So it's full meter insert, strap and deliver to all POs twice a year, 1157. The easy tracking, UPS tracking twice a year. The printing and processing of all bills, which is the 5251. Those would have been all new things that would have been in IT in the past.
Amy, is that something we should go out for a competitive bid, see if we can find somebody less expensive, or do you think that's fruitless?
I don't think you could because the QDS is who does our software. So I think it's tied to their file. I think we did at one point try to go out with CAN and it really didn't help us. It was really no different cost. There was a company called No Junk Mail that did it, but at no really different cost than QDS. I think we actually saved money when we went to QDS. And they do a lot, they do a ton of the tax departments, but it looks like the number could be 9403. I guess I can add it up to make sure. I'm not sure what the difference is in the numbers that are there, but
In the summary sheet, it says 943.
on the top,
The top, on the summary spreadsheet, it says 943 as an increase.
okay. So let's make that
That's the
9403.
right number. And in fact, it sounds like that really is more a transfer of financial responsibility. It sounds like it was in another budget last year. So
Yes.
that's really no gross increase to the
Right.
budget. It's
Nope.
just a reaccounting.
Yep. It's moving it where it really belongs.
Yeah.
IT should not be paying for folding and
No.
postal tracking on tax bills.
Well, while I'm thinking of it, it's sometime, you should get a list of all the vendors where our spend is, say, over $5,000. And we talk about those. The city, should we try to renegotiate those
Well,
numbers?
bid, competitive bid on some of them.
Yeah,
If there's some books in it, like the IT
yeah,
contractor here has
yeah.
a direct hook in, then you ain't gonna be able to beat that price. But there may be some where you could do that.
And I mean, across the board, I don't know. But,
That's fine.
some towns are doing that now.
Do you have any more questions on the tax collector?
I think it would be the fact that you reduce it to 9 hours each and brought that number down, and it's a reaccounting for the professional services. I guess that budget looks okay to me. You have any questions, Charlie?
No. Good.
Okay. Town planner. He's looking for his new guy. Or girl. Offsetting this $56,000 increase for his second planner he's looking for, his strategic planner, is there has been a $20,000 reduction in the professional services, which was the $20,000 the Board of Finance gave him last year. When you guys were looking for the EDC and First Selectmen,
Yes.
instead they gave him $20,000.
That's right.
The unfortunate part is he hasn't really spent any of it.
But he's gonna.
But I think he's going to do that.
We're gonna make an ABC.
On the website.
Yes, we are.
So, and then
But
this
wait a
45 is just a reclass. We have taken the advertisement out of this, so this 26.5 was really 22.5 here, including the advertising, and then we have broken the 45 of the advertising out. So he left just the 2 in there, took out the 20.
So again, that's just moving the money.
This is just these 2 together,
Yeah.
is the equivalent of that.
Okay.
And the 20 he took out in lieu of trying to get a body instead.
Yeah.
He thinks he could do more with a body that was here consistently than with $20,000 paying a professional person to do it.
And Ruben's budget kind of mystifies me a little bit. We're replacing Marlene, and that's a dollar for dollar, huh?
Yes.
So that's no increase, decrease.
No.
Ruben's looking for another person.
Yes,
Yes. Well, not in addition to.
yes, he's looking for a strategic planner.
Yeah.
in
So there would be
addition to-
himself as the town planner, Matt as the assistant planner, and then there would be a third planner, a strategic planner.
Do we know what that work statement looks like for him, for that person, a job description?
I don't think there is
I
one.
don't think there is one.
He just talked about it theoretically.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
I don't think we can afford that this year.
okay, then that's
We're gonna
fine.
get to the 2%, we're not, we got it.
All right.
So are you okay if I take this out but then put the 20 back in here? So he has some EDC money that he could contract
Yeah,
with?
he should have some EDC money.
Okay. So this one should be 192,685. That one in the yellow. But then we'll put the 20 back in here. And make that one yellow. So that 45, this 45 really net. So his only two other increases are education and dues and travel. I know this year he's going to nationals. I don't know if that's going to be an every year thing, and I don't know if Lori went or not. But he has planning credits he needs. Matt has planning credits he needs. I don't know about the replacement of Marlene. I don't know if she has a certification that needs to be done because she was in a higher position where she was last.
I've talked to Ruben. Last year, we attempted to put in a professional economic development person. We settled for $20K that we wanted to spend on inventorying property and working on a website, and there's a substantial amount of money left in that, and that's going to go to website development, correct?
Right.
I've had a conversation with Ruben, half an hour or so in his office. He likes economic development. He likes doing that kind of thing. Lori Whitten had many years of experience here, and she was doing a planning job. She really struggled to try to pick up economic development. It just weren't enough hours in the day. Now, maybe, Ruben has better experience, but I don't know how he's going to do both of those jobs from that seat. His primary job is planner. Does that mean we sit around with no one reaching out to businesses who may have interest in relocation or building a new business here in East Windsor?
I think he'll do that. So the question is more like, what are we missing from the planner and what are we missing from the EDC?
Yeah.
I think the person he's bringing in is probably, she's probably a pretty good planner, and maybe.
The new person coming in?
Yeah, so maybe.
She has planning experience?
Yeah.
That's in the what, the 56 number?
No, she's
that's-
in the,
That's she's taking Marlene's.
She's taking
place.
Marlene's spot.
So maybe in the future, we can bump her up and bring in a part-time or someone to be a clerical, but I don't see it now, really.
But
One thing I would
as you know, Bob, I really am very interested in getting economic development started here in town. I really am.
I agree.
Just because I think that it is a way for assuring a financial future for our town. The more houses that get built, on the Kemet property, if that's going to go forward. But, there's some out in the East Road that's being built, you're 25 or 6.
Same guy.
Huh?
Mark O'Donnell's, I think, is the same guy. He's building Hamlet at Harvest View, that's the one you're talking about.
And then across from Jason's house,
Yeah.
the real estate lady who's dealing in our area, she said that there have been people who have been asking about there. There was one person who wanted to build 57 houses in there. And that puts a load on our
School system.
our budget, because those kids have got to be if there are children, and there will be probably some number, they have to be educated.
Yeah, and what I would say about this is, what was I going to say? The one thing that this town does need, it needs somebody in charge of permitting. And you'll see developers coming in here and really upset because their CO isn't a certificate of occupancy. They've got a buyer and they've got the closing scheduled, and the CO isn't there. And the way we run that is, Rand can't go out to do the CO until all the other people involved, the WPCA and the planning and zoning and health, North Central Health and Public Works and the other people have signed off. And there's no one in charge. There's no one looking at the list to make sure that everybody's done what they should have done.
Well, let me ask a question. As an assistant planner for the town, is that Matt's job to do that?
Well, it's nobody's job, that's the thing, nobody will take it. Nobody said no. My job is to do planning and zoning permits, that's what I do. I don't care what North Central Health does, I don't care what the WPCA does. I do my job, and each one of the 8 different entities says that. When somebody doesn't do their job, and that holds up the whole permitting process. And
But is it clear to you that that's in the planning office responsibility?
I'd say it's either in the planning office or it's in the, if somebody was gonna do it, I would say it should be planning, it should, or building, or it could be my office. Heck, I could do it too. I could have one of my
Do you
people.
realize, though, that there are criteria tied to those sign-offs? And if they are not met, we cannot sign off?
Yes,
For
yes.
instance,
And
for
then,
instance,
but what I'm saying is somebody would say, okay, the only one is planning and zoning. They haven't met it, and they call up and say, hey, you haven't met it, and you can tell us what.
but
say,
what if the reason it hasn't been met is because the developer hasn't paid you the fees they're due?
Exactly, then you could say that, the developer hasn't paid the
As you
fees.
know has happened.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, yeah.
It's not just a one-time situation, Bob, that's an ongoing situation.
That's true.
So it's not just that somebody's not looking at it and somebody's not saying, I'm not going to do it. And for instance, we can't sign off on permits if North Central has not signed off on them. So, when Rand sits here and gives you a presentation about there are only 2 departments in the town hall that work on a view permit, which is building and planning, and he says that building is doing everything that they need to do, which they have lesser criteria. Then by inference, that means that planning isn't doing what they need to do. And planning may not be doing what they need to do because somebody out there like Mr. O'Neill has not paid his sidewalk fees or his open space fees or whatever. So it's not just nobody's watching the store. Sometimes somebody's stealing the store, and that's another, someone's gotta.
Somebody's got to be in charge, really.
Okay.
But is it a matter of defining for someone on staff that it is their responsibility, or is it the need to add an additional person who does that?
Well, I don't think it's that big a job you need an additional person. You just need somebody responsible for the thing. And so, they look at the chart and they know what's holding it up. If it's like that developer, like Peg says, that hasn't paid his sidewalk fees, they would say, well, this developer hasn't paid his sidewalk fees.
And do you know how long it took us to get his sidewalk fees?
Yes, I do, but I also was involved in getting the sidewalk fees, and boy, was there confusion.
Because that should have been paid when he started his development, not lot by lot.
Well, and that's where you have to look, his lawyer was saying something else. His lawyer was saying that on the closing of the house, the sidewalk fees would be paid.
But that's what they did in Suffield. That's not necessarily what we do in East Windsor.
Okay, so maybe there's a procedure that has to be changed.
We do development agreements for subdivisions, where we spell out right up front
What we do
what
is
their bonding
conditions of
needs to
approval.
be. Yeah,
We
so
do
the same
conditions of
idea,
approval.
yeah. So those weren't spelled out right in there, that sidewalk fee had to be paid when you applied, or, so maybe we just need to look at that and maybe make that a little firmer.
Well, no, I think somebody's got to be in charge.
No, but on the developer side, so there's not that confusion. Even with somebody in charge, if things aren't really clearly spelled out somewhere,
Oh,
you're still gonna have that confusion whether somebody's in charge or not.
I agree, but that someone in charge should eliminate the
But
confusion.
that person isn't going to be the one writing the development agreement or the conditions of acceptance or whatever.
Well, but if that condition, the agreement isn't written up correctly one time, then that's okay. Then this person in charge would make sure, put in procedures in place so every other time it's written up correctly. He finds.
Well, then that tells me it has to be planning. That home has to be planning then.
So then it becomes an enforcement issue.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying too. That's another hole in planning. There's also, in this town, there's a need for blight enforcement and zoning enforcement, and that's another thing that's being neglected. So
That's another position.
Yeah.
Cutting position.
But did we then too hastily take something out that should have been in there?
Well, I think you gotta, I think if, what I'm saying is, if you're gonna add anybody, I think it should be a person in planning and zoning, or in the planning or department that would do these things. So you've got all these things that are just not being addressed.
Well, to me, all this should be framed out at another meeting. We're not going to add people to this.
Yeah, okay.
Let's frame that out and decide who's going to be the key person for that. That's just a separate meeting.
Yeah,
It's a
that's
special
fine.
meeting. You know, get it over with and move forward.
So I won't read them. We'll leave them there for now, the requests that we made. Did you guys want to do anything on their education and dues or their
Well,
travel?
the travel, I would say $3,500 would be an adequate number.
Well, their travel's $2,000.
Oh, what's under there?
The under education and dues, which currently is
Oh,
$66.50. If you see this big increase, this is the year Matt got added, the assistant planner.
Mm-hmm.
And see what happens when you double, you went from less than 3 to 66 when you added a second person that was qualified as a planner and needed to have all his certifications in education. And so that's another thought. That's why this is going up, is because that new person would have some requirements. But I think, you know, every time you add something with somebody with professional credentials, you're bringing with it a cost to educate them and get their CEUs.
I'm okay with that, just that, you know, are some of these things that they're going to, seminars and so forth, that, you know, what is the value coming back here? Is it a nice thing to do, or is it because it's for the credits? I don't know.
I know, I guess you'd have to ask that question.
Yeah.
But, so that's the 7532, that's going up 882, and the other one is 2,000 for travel, and it's going up by 500.
I'd leave it the same. I would have gone 500. The education and dues, we need to get an answer on that. You know, every one of those things that they're going to, what is it?
I mean, you should have a list in here.
Maybe I'll go back to.
Not that that's going to answer your question,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
okay.
So I guess, Bob, I'm still bothered by that planner's budget, because there are things, you know, like enforcement, that I think we haven't, unless it belongs to somebody, like Matt or somebody like that, then.
Well, it does. He is our zoning enforcement officer.
And he understands it.
I would say I'm doing any zoning enforcement.
Can we get Ruben to get him to do that for us? See, there is some
Yeah.
stuff that should be done.
I agree.
And Blight,
And Blight, now that would fall into Rand, and that's tough, because he's understaffed. So if you had some kind of an enforcement, you could do part-time, you know. But that's a problem. I don't know if we have a solution to it right now.
Well, we should probably get information from Rand and what blight enforcement he's done in this past year. He's the person responsible.
But, you know, he doesn't have the time to do it.
Oh,
And then, there's another Blight issue too, that, and I, in a sense, have not done anything. We need a good Blight ordinance. We don't have a good Blight ordinance, no teeth in it. So, that, and I've been saying recently, until we get a person that, or have a means to do the enforcement, doesn't make sense to
Yeah, you're right.
draw up the ordinance, but now maybe these are
Amy
times.
says differently.
Go
Amy
ahead,
says, get your
get your ordinance.
in order, because before you can give the job to somebody to have to do, they need
Yeah.
to know what they need to be doing.
Yeah,
So
Well,
I'd
and-
like to see you guys work on an ordinance
Yeah.
that has, right now apparently, it gives Rand ability to write a letter. So he said it's a lot of time to write a letter and then nothing happens.
Yeah, and what you really do is need a procedure that, in a checklist, because I went to a seminar on it, and you do the proper things. You have to, we do have now, we just recently got a zoning enforcement officer in, but you have to write the letter, and then within 30 days do another thing, and there's a whole bunch of steps you have to do. If you do them timely and correctly, then you can, when you go to court, if you have to go that far, then you don't need a lawyer, because you just go and say, we did all these things, and it's not very expensive at all. The other way to do it is get a lawyer right away, but that's very expensive. So
Yes,
you really have to put this procedure in place and have the ordinance that goes with it.
And you have to define someone who's gonna do it for you.
Well, we don't have a person to do it, but we get the ordinance and the procedure, and we'll have to get the person.
So I wasn't here when Matt's position was added. Was it with the intention of being zoning enforcement?
He replaced, there was a, Robin Newton was the zoning enforcement officer, and she was aggressive in that area.
So that was being done before?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think fairly well.
Okay.
I think she got after people. So, are there some questions in that area, like enforcement and permitting, that
Yeah,
are kind of open questions?
that's true.
And economic development?
Yeah.
I agree with Charlie, this isn't a place to redesign a department or anything like that, but somehow we should get at that.
Building. So this has the same kind of thing. This has the addition of a full-time clerical, a second full-time clerical, but it gives up the part-time clerical we have now. So if we take out the full-time clerical, we should put back in the part-time clerical.
It's not a good.
What does that mean to Rand to do that?
Well, he's saying Ginny is overstaffed and really needs a second full-time body there. That Mark's hours aren't enough to cover for
That's what he
Ginny.
said when he was in here.
Right. I mean,
I needed more.
that's all he's given me so far. I don't know if you guys ever got, I think Jason had asked about permits, and we got into some kind of discussion about whether the number of permits or the value of permits would help with that determination, whether we're more busy now than we were 15 years ago or not. But I don't know that I didn't see any additional information. Nobody
Well,
provided anything.
Rand's off the top of the head comment to that was that that a permit that was relatively small might have complications, and one that was large might be well done
Right,
and be easier to process because it was done more professionally.
right.
And so that the answer to Jason's question wasn't very easy to come by, it wasn't very meaningful.
Mhm.
The vice versa is, there's going to be a building permit for the casino. That's huge.
I know, the problem with that is the bulk of it's going to have to be farmed out
Yes,
to some professional services, spending most of the money we get in.
Mm-hmm.
perhaps. I mean, it certainly have to do for the architectural, the first 30 days. but-
Well, not only that, even the inspections.
Well,
Rand is only Rand. There's
that's
not
right,
enough
he's
of
got to
them to go
hire,
around.
now, so the question is, do you want to hire somebody for a firm to do it that are going to charge $130 or more an hour for all their employees? Or Rand can get an electrical guy for probably 60 and a plumbing guy for same amount, so Rand can do it for half the price.
We can work through that when it comes up.
Right,
but for
when
now-
that walks in,
Yeah.
that is not included in this budget at all.
Yeah.
There's no revenue,
Shouldn't
nor is there any expenditure
Yeah.
relating to it. So this is just clearly looking for more clerical help in the building department.
Yeah, I don't think we can do it this year.
Andy?
I believe that he really does need help, additional help in there. I really do. I think we should stay with the addition of a full-time person. it's a difference of roughly 16K or something like that.
$17,000.
See, it's-
Yeah, except, right, I was just gonna say, if you look at that list though, that number becomes a lot bigger number.
No, I understand.
Yeah, and if in the building department, they took over the permitting process, that I would be more comfortable with that. I'd say, okay, I got rid of the.
But that was not,
But Rand doesn't want it at
I
all.
was just gonna say that was not part of his
Not at all. I asked him
presentation.
flat out if he'd take over the permitting process. He said no. So,
Can we use a full-time person as a way to get to the change in mind?
I don't know. He has tasks for a full-time person to do.
I don't see any data that supports putting that person to full-time, other than Rand says he needs full-time, okay? But, again, we're in a spot here where we have, a huge number that the fire department rolled that in this year, and I just don't see.
And I think between the building and the zoning, I think there's a lot of work to be done. Like you say, you can't redesign something right now, but I think that we should pay attention to that.
But the problem is, once we
Permitting and enforcement and,
Mhm.
yeah.
Once we cast a die
It's
and
not gonna
agree on a
happen
budget,
here.
and until next year, it just
Yeah.
becomes worse.
True.
Not against that he needs it, just that we're in a financial bind here.
I'm jumping ahead, Charlie, but although I agree 1,000% that there is great inequity in the fire department, the way it's taxed, and I don't agree with that at all. It should be fixed, it's got to be fixed.
Yeah.
I'm not at all prone to say we should give, we're at .460. I just am not. I think that we should challenge the fire departments to fix the problem. And what we have now, status quo, is working. And I like Steve, do not hear masses of people complaining. There are people who complain, and I don't blame them. I complain too. But I think that by giving Morales Point the 460, taking the pressure off the two fire departments to do it right, whether it's a special services district or combining a fire district or whatever the right answer is, and leave it to the experts to do it. My belief is that we should just plain not touch that one this year. And,
I talked with Chief Arcari the other day, and he said they're moving forward. It's just going to take time to do that. I look at it, the people that live on that side of town, and they're paying that tax and paying the tax over here. And from my position, I look at it that we as a Board of Selectmen should be doing something to have equity to all the people in town. And that's the only way you can do that.
And I think we are, by getting those people together to do the real work for combining. We talked to them. Amy has helped us to get hooked up with the people over in Barkham City. We talked to the people up in Enfield. And I think we have a better understanding. And we're jumping ahead. We have a better understanding of what's needed to be done. I'm not happy with the progress we're making on it, and you know probably better than I what that progress is. But
But I'm still thinking, and I'm jumping ahead now too, but I'm saying, okay, you say, we're not gonna give the fire department the 464,000, but we'll give CIP another 400,000. I'm saying, you're charging, basically you're charging Morales Point to pay for the CIP. I don't like that.
I don't like these.
Because you're gonna spend the money you don't get to to Warehouse Point, you're gonna spend it here. Well, maybe a good place to spend it would be in either building or planning and zoning. If you're gonna spend the money, where you're gonna tax the Warehouse Point people for that money, well, I don't know.
Why don't we just move along
Yeah.
to the next ones here?
What are we doing with building?
Nothing for now, I left it as it is and didn't put it here anymore. No changes. Registrar. This one has some increases. These are all tied to their new person needs to be trained. These are all tied to having X number of referendums, primaries, and votes. So all their increases are basically mandatory, with a 2% raise for the registrars, which are not really full-time. I don't know why we call them full-time, but I'm coming up with a new account when I do my uniform chart of accounts. They're most certainly not full-time employees. We pay them a stipend.
Should that line then come out, that full-time employee line?
Well, it needs to be their stipends. The number is the right number.
But they really, as you say, are not full-time.
I just want them called something different.
Yeah.
Just change the label.
Right, I want them to be called registrars versus full-time.
I guess we can leave.
And their part-time really isn't employees either. Those are their 1099 election poll workers.
So we can leave that the way it is then?
I think so.
Mm.
I think that one's good to go.
Why did the part-time was 9548, 1718?
Because we didn't have any real referendums, no primaries, right? Because this would have been fall of 17,
Yes.
spring of 18. We only had one budget referendum. So you don't pay your poll workers unless they work.
About $5,000 a referendum.
Yeah.
So if you look here, we had more in 15, 16 than we did in 16, 17, and even less in 17, 18. So every time we send things back to referendum, it's $4,500 of the total cost. The registers don't get any more because they get a stipend year round, but these guys get paid as they work.
Right.
So that's what it means when you don't go to extra votes.
I don't know what registrars get. This is stipend in other towns.
Well, this is just 2 of them,
Yeah.
so they're getting somewhere around $15,000 each. But that's just the math of how many votes we have that they have to work.
Okay.
Human Services. This one has the new $24,000 a year YSB coordinator, which 14 comes from a grant. And it also has a $17,000 part-time Human Services clerk working in the Human Services offices with the 2 full-time people that work there now.
So it's an ad?
Well, the 17 is definitely an ad. Clerical help that they don't have now. The 24 really isn't an ad. It wasn't in last year's approved budget, but we voted the grant match last June.
Yeah.
So it's really part of this year's budget, but not part of the May approved budget.
I
So-
don't think we can go and add anybody there either.
So then this needs to be the 17 and leave the 24 in there?
It's me.
Yeah. I agree.
Whoops. Let's change that number back. Sorry. So that leaves the YSP coordinator in there. And that's really the only change. The other thing is the YSP programming down on the bottom, which you have a coordinator, you have to pay for programming for them. There's no sense of having somebody and then give them no money to do anything. It's programmed specifically for kids, counseling, after-school groups, and a lot of it will be grant matched.
I don't think we got that number approved.
No, but we got it in a grant. We got $4,600 in the grant. And then we got another 10 for an after-school program. There's a lot of money tied to YSB. I'm debating whether YSB should even be here, whether it should be its own fund, like a special revenue fund, because the outside money is really outside money.
Yeah.
So, but for now, it's here. I have to figure out the best way to handle it.
Okay.
Okay, so that one we're making, because there's no other changes there. Police. The salary change here is contractual. The salary change here is just steps. There is no raise in here for these people because they're out of contract. They're part of that $100,000 contingency. I call it non-negotiated wages. This dispatcher salary has both, no steps, right? They're out of contract too.
Yeah.
But this has $7,000 tied to bumping somebody up to be the dispatch supervisor.
And is that essential to do that? Or does it works okay now?
It's okay.
Well, it could be.
If you ask the chief and the deputy, they probably tell you it's essential.
Yes.
I'm sure that's true.
The question, can we do it this year? Can we shut off another year? Maybe we can.
We have.
Yeah, that's 7640 of it.
Yeah.
So the rest are just steps, other than that.
Overtime, you know, they have two put-ons, and they show a substantial amount of overtime. They should either put the people on, or take that line out, or they should take the money out of that line, or they should lower the
Well, the
overtime.
overtime is what they ask for every year, and you guys cut it. But the only thing different in this year overtime is tied to the K-9. So they've added $11,022 to their overtime for the care of the K-9 officer.
And that's another line item that I don't think we can afford, the K-9. Now, I recognize there's grant money involved there, but we live without it. There are other resources from the state police and other places where you can access that function. I'd love to have it, but it's necessary, and I think it is.
So on this one, you want me to take out the 7640. So this is just steps. So I took out the 7640, which was the promoting a dispatcher to be the supervisor. And in this one, last year's number was 275. They spent 256 already through the last week,
How much?
256.
Okay.
And in the past years, they spent 234 and 334 and 331. So they are running in the 330s. I mean, it looks like we traditionally under budget this. They did have vacancies, but they'll always have vacancies of some sort.
No, but doesn't get, the money you have in the salaries, that sometimes is transferred, you have leftover money in salaries, which are vacancies. So you
Right.
can't transfer it into overtime.
Right,
That's how
that's
they
how
deal-
we've covered it in the past.
That's how they deal with the overtime, isn't it? By transferring the money out of, the
Yes.
fact they have not got two places filled.
Right,
They
except
do
they
that.
filled them all now. So we don't have any vacancies now. The 2 new officers got hired
Okay.
in December.
Shouldn't that then materially
It should,
lower
it
the
should
overtime?
lower, yes, except they have somebody out on medical, or they had a couple people out on medical, and they now have a brand new vacancy because somebody just signed up for the military. And he's on anywhere from a 2 to 5 year tour of duty as an active military member. So his position is now empty.
Now, that position you can't fill either, right? It's got to be held for?
You can fill it. He has to have a position when he comes back, but you can fill it. But then you have to give him a position when he gets back. And he passes the fitness for duty and all the things that go with it. So,
If they have filled the 2 positions,
they have. But they're new recruits, so those guys are in the academy. They won't be on the street for 18 months.
So that's overtime. I mean,
So they're right now getting paid to be at the academy. And then they have a bunch of ride-along time. I think they have 6 months of ride-along time before they're allowed to be on their own.
does that then mean that chunk of money that was not being used because we did not fill those 2 spots is no longer available to move into overtime?
No, but for now they're getting paid it, so now there's not. Right now, there's nobody not getting paid.
Yeah,
Right.
so it says that.
So what they saved over the first 6 months could still be used to cover overtime,
Yeah,
but now there's bodies in there, so they are getting paid. So there will not continue to be surplus in the salaries.
So the one that's left to go in the military
is now vacant and being filled by overtime.
So,
That will save some salary till they do something about replacing that.
I think overtime could be lower.
Okay? Tell me what you want it to be.
Like 300 a day.
that's just what I was thinking.
Okay. So let me yellow this one. And yellow this one. Those are the two we changed. Education and dues is the other one, it's going up $12,000. And the equipment purchase, they want to buy those removable signs that tell you how fast you're going. When you drive down the road, they can be moved from one place to another, but they're hung on telephone poles or poles versus trailers. 'Cause
And
they're
it
much
transmits
less.
data automatically and immediately to a station, to the
Yep.
station.
Yep. So
How
those,
much is
that's
that?
two of them, it's 9670, it's this number down here, equipment purchase. That's for 2 units.
Now, are they then fixed base? The ones that you see put out by various towns or state police, they're mobile, they're on wheels.
Well, there's two kinds, like Barkhamsted now has one mounted on the sign on East River Road. My guess is that's really portable, that they could pick it up and move it somewhere else, because
Yeah.
it's only about this big.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Yeah.
And I was kind of, when they were talking about.
But that's
it,
different than the
I was
trailers.
trying to
Trailers
say
are
to
much
myself,
more expensive.
Why do you need two? Let's,
They want to put them in 2 different places
I
within town, I
understand,
think.
but we could move it. I don't think
That's
it's a huge job to move it.
No, it is not. It's
I
portable.
hope for cutting that in half and you buying one of them. Let's see how the darn thing works. And if it's reasonably mobile, let's move it.
Okay. And the other place is education dues. Now, they say contractually this is what's required, but if you look at trend, clearly they're not spending it. Because 38, 39, they've spent 28 of 45 so far. So they're clearly not spending all of it. This is contractually the amount that if you add the $12,000 pot for dispatchers, the $10,000 pot for patrol, that says in the contract will provide.
We should go with the 45.
Andy? Charlie's saying go with the 45, leave it flat. 45,041.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, just remember it doesn't have any salaries.
Yeah, supplies and equipment.
Am I at the right one? No. This one's 19? Yes, that's supplies and equipment. Did they tell us what the difference was that they were going up? I can't remember. They did a really nice job of spelling it all out, so
Yeah, they did.
I'm sure it's here. Supplies and equipment. Let's see what the increase is. Covers all food care and contingency for the K-9. We can get rid of that.
Yeah.
That brings me to my next subject that I think we should really think about a lot, and that is, do we need a K-9? And I recognize that there is grant money that we have either accessed or we are in the process of.
Well, we applied for a grant for a car
Yes.
to the tune of $38,000,
Yeah.
and we're awarded it.
Now, if we don't get a K-9, that money cannot be used. I
Well,
asked,
they talked about whether it could be or not in their meeting, but I don't know a lot of the stipulations.
I thought they said it couldn't be moved.
Well, they said they could ask for changes,
Okay.
but I don't know what the other choices are, or if they would be something that we would be available to use it on.
See, I'll go back with my little speech and then I'll stop. I really think that a K-9 is a good thing. I really, truly do. It's certainly helpful. However, think there are other resources that are fairly, I'll say this without knowing, are probably reasonably readily available. like the state police, they have canine. If we really needed one, if we had a child lost in the woods or whatever, or had something going on with a drug bust here in town, I suspect that the state police would be available.
I think they said it was a timing thing,
Yes,
that it could take up to an hour for somebody to show up.
Yeah.
So your situation might have dispersed itself by the time help's here.
we have not had a canine,
Since
it sounds-
2014.
I was gonna say, it sounds like for 5 years.
Yep.
And should we someday do it? Probably. But can we do it this year?
Well, so that, I think, takes everything out that was tied to it.
Does, okay.
I don't think there's anything else.
There's 14K there. I'm sorry.
We never did get the number of calls that were actually made to other agencies for canine. Specific.
But the other thing, Charlie, is, you know, like, the police department, you know, works hard to solve problems immediately here in town. So they may, if not, that resource is not available, they may just simply do it some other way.
Yeah.
So,
So there may be some other, because they have dog food on here,
yeah,
veterinary care on here. So maybe, I don't know if that's in the professional services. There may be a little bit else that could be changed. Let's see. Yes, there's $1,000 in the professional services for the vet.
and then the recurring cost going forward also is about 15K a year, right?
Yes, that was how much was in the budget,
To service that,
and then 15.
that requirement.
Well, the
that
big
resource.
chunk of it is the 11,000 that you have to pay somebody for caring
Yep,
for the dog, whoever's in charge of it,
yep.
gets money because of a court case to get money to
You
cover.
know, there are arm protectors and, you know, and ancillary equipment you have to have for training the animal.
I don't see anything else specifically. I don't see anything else specifically lined up other than those.
Okay. And when you get a chance, could you total that up or what the cumulative cost of what we're taking out?
Oh, they gave it to us, it's $15,000. It's $15,322. They gave us an actual sheet
Oh, okay.
that spells all of it out. Talks about the startup cost being 75,
Yep,
but that, of that, the 38 was the grant for the JAG, and then the cost of the dog was in there, but the recurring things are all these things. The dog food for a year, the veterinary care, the salary for the care of the, and then a reserve. But I don't know where, I guess a couple of them I'll have to ask, where the dog is and where the reserve is.
that was, I think it was all broken out very well, but I looked
I don't
at,
think it tells them what accounts it's in though. So it does break it all out. So the 15 is the recurring, which includes 11,000 salaries, and then the 1,000 for vet care, the 800 for dog food, and then the contingency. Apparently at some point, the dog needed some kind of vet care, and they didn't have the money they needed to do it, and they had to go fundraise money for it, and they did not want to get themselves in that kind of a situation again.
I agree with that.
But-
Nor should they be.
But in year one, I asked the question about this person going for what period of training.
Yes.
And they didn't know how long that was
Yeah.
going to be. But while that person is gone for the training, which I guess it's a month or more, you know, that person is.
Well, I don't think it's that kind of training. It's not where you go and you work with your service dog. It's where they're going to go to an academy and do day-long trainings, or, because it's getting the person together with the dog. The dog is already going to be
I
trained.
understand that. It's that while that person is training with the dog, that,
Well, you could have overtime, but not necessarily,
well,
right? Because,
Yeah, fill the slot.
but you don't necessarily. If somebody calls in on a shift, if you're meeting minimum staffing, you don't necessarily have to fill that shift. There's other supervisors that could be on patrol to cover somebody being not there. So you don't necessarily, just because somebody calls in doesn't necessarily mean you are filling a shift.
no, I understand.
And that would be the same case for training. So there's not a guarantee that there's an extra cost tied to training. It's really about staffing it.
But there could be,
There could be. And that is not in here.
yeah.
So my job will be to look up the other two places and find out where they are.
Okay.
Because that will be another $3,100, so.
And what do those changes do for us?
What are our bottom numbers now? We are at 1.2 million still. And that number needs to be 800, so you still need $400,000.
Anything more on the police
Good.
department?
Good with that number?
Are you smiling, Charlie, or are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. There you go.
Are you smiling, or are you,
Yeah, it's
are you frowning?
No, I agree with what you're doing.
I'm excited because.
But we not, there's a lot of good stuff, but we can't have it all.
You can't, unfortunately.
Emergency
It's that
management?
casino.
And you know, none of the stuff that they're asking for is unreasonable at all.
No,
It's
and
just-
I don't think so either.
It's just that,
It all has to be paid for.
you someday can't fund that, you just don't have the money for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I
And
like
the
the
casino's
merge.
not necessarily your answer because you don't want to take on continuing operating costs that then are in the budget.
Without a bird in the hand.
Well, first I want the casino.
Then you can spend the money, right?
Yeah.
All right, so emergency management, this is the stipend that's split by 3 people, the chief, the deputy, and the records person, all get the stipend. Supplies and equipment, no change, phone, no change. We get about $5,000 from the federal government for doing this, of the 18.
I think that's good.
I didn't have any problem with that.
No.
Communications, this has 2 pieces. The radio system, we have a contract for $15,900, $15,800. And then the dispatch call-in, we pay 100%. Some of it is fire, some of it is ambulance. That's a number from them. This number has about 16,000 of core numbers and then other things like fixing radios and other fees that we pay tied to that.
You know, I wonder why we pay ambulance when that's a private company.
That's a really good question. There's 2 pieces of that. Our comp has them in it, and our dispatch radio we pay for. Obviously, when that contract went away in 2013, somebody didn't do all the rest of the homework and figure it out and get all the pieces done. So, but we don't even have a contract with them anymore.
So why would we pay that?
I don't know, Bob, you met with the guy. He said, because you always have. I questioned comp because I got questioned. Kerma wanted to know why they're on our comp. They're not our employees. We have no association with them. Why are they on our workers' comp?
They shouldn't be, should they?
They are on our workers'
But
comp.
they shouldn't be, should
Well,
they?
they reimburse us for a small share of it, but
No. They need to come on. They're not employees.
I think that discussion needs to be had with that association.
I don't know how you could cover people that aren't your employees. You have no control on whether they get hurt or not. You can't tell them what to do.
Well, we have a meeting with Kerma coming up, so we can make sure we talk about that. They did ask me for that contract, and I did send them the expired contract, but I never heard back from there. They asked why they were on there.
Yeah, and the ambulance part, I could be wrong, but I thought that was either 7,000 or 9,000 out of the total.
I don't know. I want to say 6, maybe, but I can't remember. I'll look into it.
But I mean, we should take that out for next year's budget.
Okay.
You agree?
Well, we need to have a discussion
I
with
agree.
them.
It has nothing to do with the town.
We have nothing to do with their employment policies, you know, their work ethic, nothing. And no supervisory responsibilities or authority.
Are they in our building over there?
Yes,
And do they pay
Full-time?
rent there?
they do not.
They pay no rent.
That's correct.
We need to change that as well.
it does look like we're not using the whole radios. Looks like 19, 21, and 19. So that 26 number might be a little high. We know about 16 is committed. But I think we can come down a little bit on that number. You guys are trying to save money.
Well, one of them is 21, so maybe we should make it.
About 20?
Well, no, what I'm saying, you're saying it's coming down? Yeah.
Well, it's 19, 21, and then 19 to 3 years. So I'm just saying the 26, 698 might be
I
high.
agree.
But you want to do like 21.5? Is that what you're thinking? So we
That would
cover
cover everything,
the
yeah.
high year?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, ambulance, when you find out what that part is,
Okay.
we could take it down by
I think that discussion needs to be had.
Absolutely,
Okay, we'll bring him into the board of selectmen meeting, Ron.
yeah.
Okay.
I did make a note for all three things. Fire services. So this is the ad for the Friday and Saturday shifts. 2 people, so 4 shifts a week, over the 52 weeks is the $20,000. It also adds the 10 to the incentive because if the volunteers that currently are volunteers and get paid volunteer incentive, if they then take the part-time job, they become hourly for all their volunteer activity also. So that's their only 2 changes they have. And then obviously the 464 is down here for Warehouse Point.
I'm still against the 464 for Warehouse Point, for the reasons I've said over and over again, and as I said over and over again, I know about, hear about, agree with the inequity, but what we have now is working. It may not be good, but I don't see the point of changing something that's working to add a confusion factor. I'd leave it out.
What if we did a portion of it? Half of it?
There's less logic to that, Charlie, than there is to putting the whole 460.
No, I don't think.
There's at least logic to the 460.
Well, there's logic to the 460, but I would agree with cutting it in half or going with 200,000 because like this, then it would be in the budget, so then next year if you put it another 100,000, you eventually get to the inequity. It wouldn't be as painful as this 3%.
My concern here is that once you put a number in there, whatever it is, whether it's 250 or 200 or 460 or whatever, it's going to be status quo, so let's put it in next year. And then how about the year after?
Well, but your only argument for taking it out is that you think you can fix it in a year.
Yeah,
Well, then it'll go out in a year.
but if we don't.
Oh.
But if we don't. Then that's not 460, right?
Well, okay, so now it's another 200,000. That's not so bad as 460.
Yeah. That's the only reason I don't like it.
What would it change to if you took out 232?
Well, about 1%, right? 'Cause we just-
Yeah, exactly.
1.5%.
Yeah.
1.5, right, because 160
Yeah,
is 1%.
Well, make it 100,000.
Then you're really not fixing the inequity, if that's what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything short of 460
Well,
is not fixing the inequity.
But it's
It's a gesture of,
well, okay,
of,
but
good
200,000, it's a good start.
So what do you want, 232?
That's what I would.
Okay, I'll go.
Again, we need to have the other guys here to
Well,
go over this, you know?
that's true. We should go through our changes with
Yeah.
them.
a question about the 460 or the 432 or 232 or whatever it is, do we get any accounting of what that money's being spent for? Or
No,
nothing? You give them a check and when the door slams, it's over?
that's been past practice. We write them a check and that's it.
But they will, in that agreement, and I'll send out the agreement, they do say that they give you a complete, at the end of the year, you can know where they spent their money, and they give you a complete audit. So it's not like it's a mystery where they spent their money.
It will make it traceable, huh?
Oh, yes.
Are they making a full budget that we'll see,
Yes,
that our number takes down their number?
yes. Yeah.
Okay, Public Works. One of our few places that the contract is actually in place.
Yeah.
So that one has a contract in place. It also has one of the salary people. They are trying to bump up their admin person from step 3 to step 4 to represent all the work she does tied to helping Joe and Len and doing the IT related stuff. And she took on a lot of the bill paying across the town-wide stuff from Jen's spot at one point. So they are looking to compensate her. That is $4,477. Is what's included in that number. Everything else is contractual.
Not a year to do that. People work
Yeah.
X number of hours a week and you seem to be doing it. So,
I know that she did apply for the job in the P&Z office. 'Cause
Yeah.
So I don't know if she's comfortable in doing work in the public works and being a job grade 3, so something to think about.
what is that job paying now?
Who would ask me that now, the contract?
Yeah.
Let me see if I can tell.
But interesting, Amy, in your worksheet, you say the budget impact is $1,044.08?
So the math didn't work?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not including the top number.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the two bottom pieces.
I don't know.
It's a formula error. Sorry about that. They do happen.
Oh, yeah. But even the two bottom pieces, are just a penny off it.
Let me see if I can tell. Doesn't look like I can. Like he provided us that level of detail, so no, I can't tell.
Their overtime is up 9K.
Yeah, and that needs to be. Because currently they have a supervisor not getting paid overtime and has built up a huge amount of comp, which you'll be seeing on Thursday. They need to up their overtime to cover that. It's been built up over 3.
And that is the difference?
Yep, and it's been built up over 3 seasons.
Yeah, it's just plowing, I guess he does.
But
Yeah.
the comp time they can take though, right?
Not if you don't have any time to take it. It's one of those situations that you can't give people comp time that can't take it.
Because,
They take the day off and they get called in.
oh,
They get called in on Sunday because something's flooding or something doesn't have heat or,
There's gotta be days to take it off, but it's gotta be.
we'll have that discussion on Thursday.
Okay, good.
So that's the numbers there. So I guess the only question is whether you're leaving the bump from one grade to another, from a 3 to a 4, or you're taking out that $4,400.
I would take that, that's me.
Andy,
yeah, I would too.
Bob,
Now, if I had to leave something in that, I might leave it in and go back to it, but if you guys want to take it out.
total of, that's the overtime.
And why is that in
Well,
there?
first of
What
all,
you were just talking about?
yep, first of all, the supervisor, and second of all, if you look at trend, 53 last year, 47, and they are totally out this year already. Their 46 has all been spent in this last payroll. So they'll be totally out of money again this year. The good news is we do have a place to go for that. We have a storm fund that on the savings of all the other lines, we can send it over there. So for the rest of this winter, we'll have a place to go to get that money. But that's money that really needs to be in there to reflect the payment of that. It's not fair for one guy to work all those storms and get nothing, and everybody else to get paid.
That's probably right.
But it's the position is a comp position for the time.
What are the differences
No, but
in
there's-
wages of that
really-
person compared to the other two again?
What happened was, I think the supervisors union is trying to cause problems for no good reason, but he realized that Joe now has, I think it's,
We shouldn't get into names
Right.
here.
well, I shouldn't, I didn't realize when I first had it, but the supervisor has, and I would say $400 in comp time stored up, and so the union steward or whatever it is wanted to file a grievance saying that he should be paid for that. And in the contract, it says that in lieu, you don't have, you can take comp time, or you can be paid time and a half for it.
Does it say pay in there? Or does it only allow them to accrue comp time?
No, you can pay them, yeah. So,
So we need to get on the spot where we're just paying them regularly.
But it's our decision.
I'm not sure. Well, if he would have grieved it, it would have been the state's decision of whether we should pay him or not.
Well, we need to look at that with Mike Harrington to see what.
Well, let me say another thing. I was talking to a supervisor, and he said that he went down and did the work himself. He said, if I could send 3 other people down there to work a half a day, or I could down and do it in a half an hour. So sometimes there's a little savings in having a person who's skilled to do the job. I think you're saving a lot of money.
I'd like to see what that is. I'd like to see the example of what you just said. Not for now, but it's not logical to me.
It's like having 14 people do brain surgery. They might screw it up.
They're not doing that down there.
Some people have higher skills than others.
I do think the person that is in question has great skills and works his butt off for us.
But I was talking about brain surgery.
Well,
No,
maybe
he's talking about,
I'm talking about-
somebody coming and fixing the flood. Like, had he sent somebody different, they might not have figured out what it was, where he finds it, fixes it, gets it fixed, gets in contact with whoever he needs to get in contact with, minimizes our losses,
Okay,
so.
but I look at this.
We don't have skilled, like,
That's
heating guys, or, we don't have a skilled set of,
Yeah,
professional services, how's that?
but, this is a new job in the past couple of years. It hasn't been one that's been around a long time.
Right,
And that when you sign on, that's what you want to do, and that's what it is.
except it's not an exempt position. None of our staff, none of our supervisors that are in that
Yeah.
union are exempt.
But we need, I'd like to look at that with Mike Harrington, what that situation is before we make a decision on that. Get his
Call him.
opinion.
Make yourself a note, because that's on Thursday's agenda,
What is?
the whole discussion about paying overtime.
We should understand that, but I believe that the supervisor has a lot of good skills, and he should be paid the overtime. I really believe
There's
that.
no question about the skills. But again, it gets to the position of, this is what I took on, this is what I wanted to do, and now, because I've been able to accumulate, now I want money, okay?
No, he doesn't,
If that's the case, that, I mean, I think the manager.
He is not looking for money, it's his union that's pushing it.
yeah, no, just picked up.
But there is a concern, I have a concern overall in all our comp time, that we should have limits for everybody. Because we did pay somebody else out last year.
Yeah.
But we cannot allow our people to build up huge amounts of comp time. They need to get to a certain point and either have to take it or get paid it.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. And our contracts need to limit them, and they do not right now. So that is something that overall needs to be looked at.
In the private sector, I believe there are lots of companies, I don't know what you're Charlie, but at United, we used to be able to turn a lot of time around the corner, vacation time, and, you know, we didn't have comp time.
Yeah.
We could turn vacation time around the corner, and that all went away. You either took the vacation or you lost it.
Yeah.
And I think that goes with comp time too, at some limit. I don't think the first hour should go away, but I'm just saying that you should not allow employees, for whatever reason, get the $400.
Right. I'm 100% there with you. We thought we were going to deal with it through the contract negotiations. That's why we didn't take care of it at the same time we took care of the other one. We should have just done both.
That's a fifth of a year.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, it has built up over 3 winters, so it's not just one.
Yeah.
And it's other things too. It's flooding, it's no heat, it's emergencies only. It's not an hour here because somebody stopped him in the hall on his way through.
Yeah.
It is true either plowing while everybody else is out there plowing, or emergencies like no heat, floods, different things that have to be dealt with.
Who would you like to talk to about?
Whether we have an obligation to pay it or not.
Oh, okay.
All right. So far, that's the only change I made there. Town properties. A big one of these is me. The water company sent us a statement saying this is our new price. So we not only have a this year problem, because this number will be $8,000 over because they change in January, but next year will be $16,000 more. So, and we got it after we had submitted budget. But I do have the letter from the water company. It tells us exactly what it is per foot for each month, and that is the number we need to have in there. So that is a big increase there.
That's a huge change, isn't it?
It is. It's 5%, 4.5%,
And it's not something we can do without, is it?
and it is not. It is tied to our hydrants.
Okay, well, you know, I don't know how those houses will run. East and Middle Road are set up, whether or not the town pays for those, or do the people there pay for those. I guess we need to get on the water company where exactly these hydrants are in the footage, and have them meet with Bob or something on this, because Andy, you're paying for your own.
We are.
Okay, but I don't know if they separated that in the bill to the town. And that could be enough that would be material.
Let's see, what else is new in here? Building repair, this is just on trend. We don't have enough money to do the buildings we're doing. We spent 85 last year. I don't know what the year before that was. 58 on a 60, I'm sure. 85 on a 60. And so he has asked for 70. We've already spent $7,000 more, but 9,900 of it is tied to Scout Hall. But that is just an ask based on what we're really spending. This he removed some from some of the lighting changes based on trend. He's taking it down. We have not spent that in the last couple of years. We've been going down the right direction for electric for buildings. So that's his request there is a decrease. Street left the same. It's pretty close. It looks like we're just about at that this year. 136,099 was our number last year. The water I did, and then these are the biggies. This one, if you look at clearly, we were over budget 2 years ago. We'll probably be over this year, or pretty close. spent 30 last year on a 25 budget, so all he's trying to do is bring it up to where we're spending. This is for fixing people's offices, redesigning, planning, rearranging maybe tax, swapping them maybe. So, but that is a new line item.
I like that line item, but I'm not sure we can afford it.
Not this year.
I agree. It's too bad.
Should we leave some money in there just so it's a line item?
Okay.
I don't know. The line item still remains, there's no money in it, so we don't have to do that. Maybe we just have to, unfortunately, bite the bullet. And we're not doing it this year.
Okay.
There's a real need for that.
Oh, I know.
Road improvement, sand and salt. I think the 150 is a good number. Obviously here we were 164. I don't know why we were so low there, but I'm sure that number will be at the close to the 150 if not.
Does a mild winter this year leave some money in a kitty that he could use next year? Or?
I'd be shocked, only because we've had so many flash freezes. They've been out almost as many times, and that sloppy, icy mess, they're out there treating roads. Even if it's really not plowable, they're still out there treating. So I would be surprised. Maybe we could have Len look into it if you want.
Well, and when I came here, I cut it back for the same reason. It didn't work out. So I think 150 is a good figure to have for salt and sand.
So this is the one where you can't go below 275 because this is what offsets the tar money, county road that comes from the state.
And I think for the same reason, this is the year we can bump that up to 25.
I think this is the one he was trying to do Trombley, and it's 100,000 towards drainage and 400,000 for something else. His proposal in here is tied to Trombley.
I think we might be considering a bond and allow us to do road maintenance like that.
Yeah, Trombley Road drainage is 100,000, includes first, second, and fourth streets, and then the paving is 400,000 for pulverized, grading, and paving. So it's $500,000 to do Trombley Road.
I think we should go with 300,000. That would cover us for the 275, right?
Yep.
Whatever.
I mean, I know.
Say it again, Charlie.
He wants to go to 300.
300.
So up it a little bit, but not significantly.
But then their target was to do Trombley Road, right?
Right. Well, they will have some CIP money. Well, maybe. And they do have
There were
money.
2 spots in CIP
Yeah.
for that kind
Yes.
of work.
Yes.
If that's the case,
But we
We
did cut
have to-
$600,000 out of CIP.
we have to take that into consideration
Right.
if we are serious about doing Trombley Road, because I don't think they have enough at 300K.
No, it's definitely
Or,
not.
Probably not.
I'm guessing, they're not all 40%.
No. That would be my recommendation. Now.
Just keep in mind when we're doing CIP that
Yeah.
we have to leave some money there to do that.
Senior Center. This one has a part-time driver in there.
Can't do it this year.
I think that has to go.
Yeah.
We have 3 vehicles, 2 drivers, and Melissa was looking to,
Well, we have 3 drivers, 4 vehicles. We have 3 drivers, 4 vehicles. We have 2 full-time drivers and 1 part-time currently.
you're right. And she was looking to be able to manage the other vehicle
Doing evening stuff.
more. And I think we can't do that.
Okay, so I took out the 17, which was the cost of that. The 466 is the raise on the 13, on the 33, 466. She did reductions in longevity because one of our drivers retired, so we don't have to pay longevity to the new driver. She reduced professional services because we only have to pay for that every so many years. I think that was the hood that we're not using now at the fire, right, the senior center, yeah. So we're not using that oven at the fire station anymore, so now we don't have to pay that $600 for that inspection. And supplies and equipment, I think was just based on the cost of the supplies. And programs, she's just trying to
But
increase.
the supplies were,
Thinking it's things tied to the programs, but hold on a minute, I'll tell you.
the spend
What's
so
in
far as
supplies?
582
The supplies is $582, yes.
year-to-date.
And
so-
$17.99 last year, $624 and $606.
I was,
So let's see, can I tell what's increased? She's looking for a $600 portable sound system, current one not reliable. And then she added some first aid supplies for buses. That's what's in her supplies and equipment. And yeah, and she took out the hood cleaning, which was the $600.
first aid kits that we put in the buses. I can't be more than $50 a piece.
And then the $600 was the portable sound system. Trade up a sound system. So that's 600 of that increase.
I'd say $1,500.
1,500?
Charlie, I can't understand why you would give $25,000 for road maintenance and not give $500 for Band-Aids and supplies to the seniors. I don't
Because they
understand.
don't cost that much.
Well, then, I don't see that 25,000 up there. I don't see what that does. The one you left in road maintenance.
Right up here, the increase up here.
I don't
This
see that.
increase.
I don't see that. If you're gonna quibble over supplies and equipment for seniors, and chip it down by $500, why in the world would you give, I mean, in road maintenance, there was $275,000, and you want to bump it up by $25,000 for what?
No, you don't have to.
Okay, I'll take it away.
Okay.
I'm more comfortable with that. Makes sense.
Okay. You're right. Going up on the programs.
Yeah, that's the combination of the entertainment prices have gone up, and she talked a little bit about this. They have their once-a-month birthday celebration that has somewhere between 50 and 80 people at it, and they have paid entertainment at it. They do some in-house stuff, they do some food for it. They
Okay.
want to do some brain health.
I'm for leaving that in.
Are we good with that number altogether, being 0.87?
Yeah.
Haven't done too many where we've been okay with the,
We're gonna have to come back and vote on these things.
Yes.
It's gonna take time.
yep. Good thing we have 3 more meetings. Okay, Parks and Rec. She reduced her staff, which I think based on the trend, she should be reducing her staff. This is a new line, this is overtime, tied to supervisor getting comp time or paid overtime.
What?
We have the
Work by
same
the
problem
hour.
there. Huh?
Don't they work by the hour?
No, we have comp time offered. All of our clerical and supervisory union staff can get either paid comp time, take comp time off, or get paid overtime. So, and there's not a line for it here. Last year, we went for an additional appropriation, or we did a transfer to cover it in the springtime when I first got
I
here.
don't see why Park and Rec would have any overtime. I just don't.
Well,
I can tell you that the city of Meriden doesn't.
well, I can tell you that the person in there getting overtime, you have to put it somewhere, and it's a supervisor of 3 departments.
I guess I'm coming from the fact that you just don't have overtime. They go home whenever that time is done.
And I'm coming from the point that you gotta provide services to the town. You don't go home and say, oh, you don't neglect the residents.
Well, let me tell you that they had to go to the city hall in Hartford to get a death certificate. And I went there, and on the door, okay, to go into that room, there was a piece of paper that was taped to the door. It said, due to budget constraints, we may not be able to serve you in what you may think is a timely manner. We do the best that we can. Now, that piece of paper that was on the door was yellow and had started to roll up because it's been there for a long time, okay? Because the city doesn't have the money. If you don't have the money, then you can't do the things. And that's why Park and Rec, I mean, it's a seasonal thing that you have activities. I just don't see why we are into that. That's management control over that expenditure. I just disagree with that. We shouldn't have any.
When do they,
I'll vote for it. You vote against it.
when do they use the overtime? Do you know about? Okay. What is
Well,
it used for?
it's for comp time. It's for somebody who you know, has, there's 2 supervisors that seem to have to spend a lot of time doing things. And they,
Outside of their normal workday.
outside of their normal workday. And that's the way it is. So we have to compensate for that. We have to pay them overtime, and we haven't been allocating for it. It's time we recognize that that's the case.
But what is it that requires them to work beyond the normal workday?
Well,
That's so critical to.
Well, it could be an eviction. It could be an issue at the park over the weekend that she might get called in for.
or
Does something happen?
It could be the carol singing at the fire department on Saturday night. There's a lot of
I
things.
mean, things happen, unfortunately, in all 3 of those departments outside of ours.
That you have, you know, person has to be able to supervise all the people.
So this isn't kids at the park getting overtime?
I understand.
Okay.
Under the site improvement.
What are we going to do about the overtime? In or out?
Guess you're the deciding vote. One wants it out and one wants it
I'm
in.
in.
Okay, so we're good then, it's staying in.
I do have a question. Salary full-time, she's adding an additional person?
No? Parks and Rec?
No, I'm sorry, you're right.
No, she's got no new bodies in here.
Yeah.
So your site improvement, the notice says facilities and grounds repair and required safety standard materials, wood chips, fill, process sand, signage for parks with addresses. That's what's in the 18,000.
They only spent 3,800 this past year. Today.
Yeah, but I think most of that's a springtime expense. If you look at last year, it was 22,000, the year before it was 18,900.
It was for park signage.
No, it's fertilizer, field maintenance, wood chips, like the mulching, the new sand for the beach.
Yeah.
If you're looking to cut an area, you could certainly cut that down like 15K. Is it gonna look as good? No, it isn't. You can go in there with rakes.
Did we not just do a beautification because we didn't like the way things looked? Didn't we just set together some kind of committee somewhere?
You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is where their money would come from, right? To cover?
We don't know that. No, because this is what.
Well, this says facilities and ground repair, materials, wood chips, I mean,
But this committee's not under that organization.
I think the largest part of that is fertilizer also.
I'm sure it is.
It was
I'm sure- I'm sure-
4,000 for the first.
I'm sure the applications, I do pesticide applications.
I don't, site improvement,
I don't know a lot.
specifically.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about it either.
Did you mention the word signage in there, park signage?
Yes,
Because that's what they wrote
yes.
last year.
I know, we've been asking for new signs at the park. I see it every day when I walk by it.
I said
I
last
know.
year, how about putting up a sign, because all that was there was a chain hanging.
Yep.
Yeah.
It
Okay,
still looks
we're-
the same.
We're gonna do that, and
It still looks the same.
there's no sign to the park.
And it should be, good, again, to compare something, if you compare Ellington, their recreation over there is a very lovely art carved sign. It looks brand new, but it certainly identifies the area by name.
Yeah, we should have it. I mean, last year they said they were gonna do it, and the chain's still hanging.
I think we should have a sign on the park, I really do.
Yeah.
I think you expressed that when you were meeting with her.
I just don't want to see it come up again another year and no sign. The dog park's down.
Which is volunteer run.
No. Okay, moving on.
Okay. Libraries. Currently, we give Broadbrook $5,000, they're looking for $25,000. I did do an analysis for you guys, as you asked me, and if I add internet to their current, what they're paying now, it's $10,768. That is still a volunteer librarian and not covering any of the new things they wanted to do. It doesn't count the roof fund or the repair fund or the miscellaneous paid programs or the event passes. So,
So I would say 10.
Yeah.
That's where I was gonna go. I really think we should give them 10.
Yeah.
and Broadbrook, currently 268, they are looking for 293, 460. They are using only 5% of their budget of their own money. Everything else is coming from the town.
Their participation was down. Their participation in terms of people going in there was down.
Is down.
You know, so. That one, I would say, my opinion.
Would you hold last year's budget line?
I'm even thinking like the 257, which is the actual from the year before.
I know.
But 257 had to be a cash number because they're another one that we just write them a check.
Yeah,
They get a check 4 times a year,
yeah.
so that must have been the actual dollar amount.
And you got the financials from.
We do,
Right,
yep,
okay.
I filed them with the town clerk.
Okay, because Bob and I had a conversation about that. I was gonna ask for the financials
Oh, they're filed with the town clerk.
and it came.
Yep, they brought them to
Yeah,
the
I saw
presentation, and then I filed them with the town clerk.
We didn't have them before, did we?
Yeah, we get them every year.
Oh, we did?
Yeah,
Okay.
we do. Most of our organizations are really good about getting us
Yeah.
financials.
Okay.
some of them, it doesn't make sense. Forever giving them $10,000 doesn't make any sense to ask them to do financials that will cost them $7,000 of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know, unfortunately, some of it's just the nature of it.
I'd say whatever we gave last year.
I'll go with that.
I agree. That's
That
right.
makes it 268.
Yeah, 268.
Make that green.
Board of Finance. The two increases, I did this budget, the two increases are $500 for our audit, that's based off our contract. And the other item is I increased the annual report because it cost us $3,000 to do it this year, just under $3,000 with the new format. So I've upped it to, so they will cover the whole cost, because this year I paid half of it out of here, and I paid the rest out of printing in first selectmen's budget, because I didn't have any other place to pay it for. And I couldn't overrun the line because I don't have enough money in that budget to do that.
I'm okay with that.
So the 3K is what it costs, you're saying?
To do the annual report. Yep,
If that's it, we should do it.
that's it.
It really was much better.
Thank you. Thanks to Amanda, she was a huge part of it. Bob's office worked very hard. All right, recording secretaries. I have left them the same. I don't know, maybe we should look at the actuals, maybe that will help more. They're pretty much running the same, so this one looks like maybe they canceled a couple meetings. P&Z, but this is the number of meetings per month times the number of meetings. Education dues are clearly not really spending. ZBA, that's their number of meetings a month. Their expenses looks like they have been spending it.
Well, should we leave the P&Z with that 500 or?
I mean, it looks like they spent 205. I guess part of it's going to be turnover and what's available to go to.
Yeah.
I mean, 110, 135, and then 205 so far this year. So,
Changing that won't get us to the goal, so.
let's see, Board of Assessment Appeals, EDC. Now, this is new. Ruben put in $5,000 to put up a phone app. He wants to create an app for like phones, so people can go in the app store and buy it, tied to EDC.
Well, I'm thinking maybe that's a next year project.
Well, or this year out of the 20 we already have.
I don't get the user of that app.
Well, because everybody's tied to their phones. His thought is that there's an app tied to East Windsor that people are going to be looking at for properties available that will tie them to the website through an app in the phone. Instead of sitting down at a computer.
So let's,
Okay.
You'd bring the website up first, wouldn't you?
yeah.
And it looks like they haven't spent the 3 they have this year already. They have 3 now and have spent 0.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you what it was for.
No, that's good. Like I say, future year, yeah.
Okay. Inland wetlands, just the recording secretary and the fees. Police commission, just the secretary. Building commission, just the secretary. Elderly commission, just the secretary. Charter revision, I put in the 1,500.
Well, I
even though
think
there
you
was
can
none.
cut that to 10 too.
Huh?
Cut it to 10. Mainly because
10 what?
10, I'm sorry, 1,000, you could take $500 off.
For the number of meetings?
Yeah, because
Okay.
For which one?
The recording.
Recording,
Charter.
you're gonna have July, August, September, October, and that's it. So you have them
Oh,
4 months, that's all.
Is that enough?
Yeah.
4 months at whatever the cost is?
Yeah.
Okay. Ethics has 500, has spent nothing other than a few years ago, obviously we had some issue. Historical, spent nothing. Capital improvement spent all of theirs is just 6 meetings. Veterans spends theirs. Ag spent nothing, conservation spent nothing. So I don't know if it's because they're not meeting, huh?
They're not submitting minutes.
They're not submitting minutes?
Conservation.
Okay, let's not,
Because they
let's
never
pretend
have-
I didn't hear that. We can't be holding meetings if we're not submitting minutes.
I don't know if they make any votes.
I don't think it matters if you're having a public meeting and you're a public agency, there's a requirement to do minutes whether there's votes in there
You're
or
right,
not.
you're right. You have to set a start time and an end time.
You just send it, oh,
You send it, please.
What's that then?
You guys
She
said
said,
it.
you said it, please. All right, so what's in here? Cemetery has asked for 40. It looks like they got a bump last year to 20. Before that, it was 17.5. Before that, it was 15.
same as last year.
Andy, you okay with that? Giving them 20?
Yeah. Do we get any accounting from them at all as to where
They give us an audit.
that money goes? We do.
They give us an audit. So it tells their overall, doesn't necessarily say where our money goes, but it gives us an overall, their financial, what they're doing with their money. I guess the big ask, even though it's
You
not a
know,
very big
if they
ask.
do much capital improvement, do you recall at all? Have you looked at their audit?
I don't remember seeing capital improvement on it, but I didn't really go through it. I can go back and look.
A couple of years ago, they put in some driveways at the Scannick Cemetery. They widened when it goes to the back circle, and they improved that significantly.
Okay. I'll look and get back to you. So the other big ask is Fort Town Fair wants to go from 500 to 1,000. Yes, they're increasing their ask to all the towns. They tried to tell us we needed to do the bathrooms again, and we were like, wait a minute, we just did them. We're not on the hook for those again. We're not the sponsored town.
Trash collection, yeah.
So their ask this year came in at 1,000, which is double. Not that it's a lot of money and being only $1,000, but, and that's really the only change in that whole section.
Okay.
Any thoughts on Fort Town Fair?
I think it's important to retain that position with the fair and its.
Yeah, I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't like
it's-
it.
I
Town
agree.
council, I did this and I picked the same amounts we're at this year, and I think it is reasonable. We were very high the last year, but I think this year will be better than it was last year, and I think next year we should be fine. Some of our negotiations should wind themselves down, so we should have, so I think those numbers are good. That was my guess.
And we have better hourly rates.
So, health and life insurance, this is that 115. It can come down, but I don't know what that number is yet.
That
Sorry.
should come down.
It's gonna come down. This was in at 18, this number is at 18%, but it was only a 6% increase because there were people in there, that positions that didn't get hired. The EDC person, all the people who were asking for people were still in to help, and then people like me and Helen came and didn't take it. So this number is based on who really has insurance, but that number needs to change because we went from 18 to 12.89. So this will come down a little bit.
There any judgments on how much?
No,
The increase, though, you said it went from
18,
18
right,
to
so the
12.
increase is 18 right there, so it's gonna come down a third of that.
Yeah, yeah.
So maybe
30%,
35,
yeah.
And
maybe 35.
And if people go to the state 2.0 plan, that will also help.
Yes, I think, yeah, I think so. Especially because then it means we're not funding HSA accounts,
Yeah,
because they're back to PPOs. So there'll be no funding of an HSA.
right.
That number will come down a little bit, but we only changed a couple positions, so it will come down just a small amount tied to those positions, so I'll do that. Pension is gonna stay the same, because that's the required contribution from the actuary. This number we need to talk about. This covers if there's an actuary evaluation requirement, which current year there is not, but it also covers payouts for people who leave. So if they have the buildup of sick, vacation, personal time that they get paid out when they leave, I guess not personal, I think it's just vacation and sick. their contracts limit that it can only be 25% of X number of days, and they have caps on them all, but there's still some payouts, and this has, I think, 2 people's or 3 people's payouts in it. But there are still people out there with large numbers on the books. So I don't know, I'm not sure if there's an OPEB this year, so that might be able to be dropped, but we could look at that number again. Right now, I have it at what last year was, because I didn't have the OPEB valuation at the time, but I think it's come in since. The 401A will come down a little bit for the position you didn't put into planning, because that had retirement tied to it. Oh, maybe not. Some of them are DC, so this is anybody who's DC or has a 457 match, which is only police. So that number will not change for the planning position, because that would have been a DB person, and they won't come into that until they get to this next year's valuation, because that's already set. The only time this would be effective if it's someone in the clerical union who is now DC going forward, which we still haven't finalized all the paperwork yet, but we're getting closer to that. Workers' comp, big decrease. This is what we actually will pay,
And why did that decrease?
because it's what we'll actually pay. In the past, the numbers have been, how about less than accurate? But you never put anywhere, you never had a line for non-negotiated wages. I am not willing to change these numbers. I want these to be what truly we're paying for LAP, truly what we're paying for comp. And I want a line that says non-negotiated wages. So every time we have contracts that are not negotiated, we have a spot to put them,
Okay.
versus having them somewhere else by inflating other numbers. And the 27th payroll is the addition of 2 days, because February has 29 days left next year.
Yep.
IT. So I'm gonna guess this is where you saw the decrease tied to Patty's increase for the purchase services from quality. And then this is based on the consultant. Software licensing is programs that we have licensing for. That's that whole big list inside there that covers the AccuFund finance software, the next-gen software for police, the quality data software for both tax and assessor. Anybody who has licenses they need to pay is in this line,
Okay.
all town-wide. And equipment is printers, computers, which we should probably even do more than that. I think last year he had some extra money in something somewhere else, so he spent it in equipment, because you can reorganize between your lines if you find at the end of the year you did need something. So he has just 8 in there.
And how many computers is that gonna be?
Well, it's a combination of probably computers and printers, but I don't know if he spelled it out or not. Let's see if he spelled it out. I have to get past all my backup for my, all the lines I did for you guys. Well, because if anybody asks me a question, I want to have it. Okay. It doesn't say. So we would have to ask that question. He spells out his software detail is very detailed for the 131. It is exactly all the different, so it's Outlook for everybody is 20,000. Treasurer AccuFund is 10.8, tax collector is 13.7, assessor QDS is 14.7, view permit is 13.7, police next gen is 31, town clerk new visions is 10.9, and the GIS system is 12,250. And then there's a few other ones. Hydrology studio is $200, my rec for park and rec is 3,295, and charity tracker is 990. So that equals the 131,461 for the license and renewals for the various users.
Now, do we get government rates, like the office software?
I don't know if there's government rates or not. Joe would be a good person to ask that.
I believe there is. And, but I'll talk to them.
Okay. Yeah, I don't really know that answer. Sanitation, no for town fair because we're not the host town. Collection, he left the same. Disposal, he left the same, and he removed hazardous waste because that only happens every other year. So it's in this year, and so it won't be in next year.
Okay.
Contingency, this is my new 100,000 non-negotiated salaries. I left the 50 in contingency that you guys have kept in there, and we've been using it for things other than salaries. We've been using it like when we needed to move the money for the travel for the assessor, that they were gonna go over budget and needed travel money. That's where we tried to take the charter revision secretary out of. So this is truly contingency, but your charter says that you can have up to 3% of your budget in contingency. But this 50 has been the number that you guys have traditionally had, which is way better than a lot of other towns. So it does give you some flexibility. The bad news is the Board of Finance has to approve it to move it
Yeah.
by charter. This one you wanted to make the 30. I moved it, I fixed it in the wrong spot. So I don't have a problem with that later. So this one I broke out in a couple lines for you guys, so you guys can see that this was the regular ask and this was the additional appropriations. So they're not mixed in within your budget. So you guys can see the additional appropriations that have been made in the last 2 years. We haven't made any yet this year, but there is an ask coming. And then the 99 for the Board of Ed computers for the second wave. They have 3 years of purchasing computers. And they got approval at the Board of Finance meeting for their second year.
What was the 200,000 for the computers?
That they got last year?
Yeah.
That was wave 1. There's 3 of them. There's $200,000 3 times to replace all the computers district-wide.
Did you understand it when they made that presentation?
No, I thought that the,
Thought it was the whole deal.
yeah.
It's
I
the
thought-
whole deal for
I
that
thought
one
the
wave,
230 last
instead of
year.
a five-year lease. So they could have done $52,000 a year for 5 years, or just done an additional appropriation for the whole 200,000.
But they're not replacing more computers, are they?
Yeah, they're replacing other computers. It was only 3 grades. It was only 3 of the grades and so many of the teachers. Each one is only so many grades and so many of the teachers, and that's the same way they were bought originally when they were bought 5 years ago. 1 year they bought so many, the next year they bought so many, the third year they bought so many.
And actually, at least so many, I think.
Yeah.
You had leases up until you started purchasing, which was last year, it's the first time we purchased them.
Leasing just doesn't make any sense, because to pay an extra $60,000 or $70,000
No.
doesn't make any sense at all.
I just thought the 230,000
Bought them
that
all?
they
No.
spent last year was enough to cover the replacements required
No,
for sealed computer.
for that 1 year, and then there's 2 more.
That wasn't clear to me.
The presentation, they didn't show the presentation? Yeah, they did at the meeting. It actually shows all 3 years spelled out. How many teachers, how many students, which grades are covered. They did a really nice presentation last year when they were looking for that additional appropriation, spelling it all out. So, and then this is our leases for our truck and our DPW truck and our town hall HVAC. So that's a committed 10-year lease. So that's that number. Debt service, these are actual numbers. These are our debt payments as of right now for all the debt that's been issued.
I don't like those.
And the Board of Ed is the budget they approved. So that gets you guys to 3.96. Overall, you're 4.22, but because you left CIP flat, it brings you to 396 overall.
Well,
And that has the half of the 1.5% for tied to the
if we
broad
took-
warehouse point.
at CIP, we took out like 700,000, didn't
We
we?
took all of it. You took 634.
Yeah.
You were
okay.
1.4 million.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying.
Okay.
So I'm trying to figure out the percentage, and I should think it would have come down more than that.
Why? You left 232 in there for warehouse point,
Oh, yeah.
right? So you left 1.5%. 1.5% of your 4 is just is just warehouse point,
Okay.
because you left 232 in there. So basically, you left $400,000 of increases in there.
But bear with me.
No, that's all right.
It's getting late. If you take, what percent of 15 million is 600,000?
Well, you gotta remember, that's not on the whole 15. Your 631 is on 14,969. So your 631 on the 15 is this 3.96. Right? Because CIP's $1 million of it and it has no increase. So your operating budget is going up 4.22%. Your CIP is going up nothing. So overall, your 15,946 is going up 631, which is 3.96%. Same reason why it was skewing it, because the CIP
Well,
was originally
all I'm
going
saying
up.
is I'm surprised they've taken $600,000 out. I should do with
You
more.
had to take out your total was 1.5 million, 1.4 million.
Yeah, but my question is, going back, isn't 1% of 15 million 160,000?
Yes.
So if you took 6 million is 600,000 is 4%, isn't it?
Yeah, you went down from 12% to 4. You were at 12.55% when we started.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I thought that by taking it out, you were lowering the 4.22.
Your 4.22 is tied to your operations. You are still going up $631,000 on your operating.
Okay, that makes sense then. Okay, I see. All right.
This total number, remember, you
Yeah,
were at
yeah.
12.55. I think you can see it on my next page,
Yeah,
because I don't think I made any
right.
changes there. My next goal would be to all these changes to be on here. Yeah, you were at, before we started today, you were at 12.55, which is the sum total of both of them,
Okay.
operating and CIP.
And now I understand. Thanks for being patient.
That's right. So you've gone down about 8%,
Mhm.
with about 1.5 of that being the warehouse point decrease. So instead of having 3% in there tied to warehouse point, you now have 1.5.
So
So you're pretty close.
if you combine the two, government and the Board of Ed, what is that? Increase, what is it?
6.72.
That's gonna leave a lot of work for the board of finance. They can't go into 7%.
And if you think about the revenue problem we talked about, it's even worse.
Yeah.
So they'll take the fire out of that. They'll take the 200,000 from fire, and that'll. But that'll bring us down to 2%. Or
That gives you
2.2.
right now an 8.12% tax increase. That 7% operating budget.
So-
You know, part of it is she's also going down. She's dropping her supplemental motor vehicle down to 275. She's dropping her interest and fees down to 75. So she's, she has 2 other cuts in there that are affecting that.
It's kind of coming at a bad time, isn't it? The bad news is that for most people in lower and, well, not lower, but in the mid-range of federal taxes, they're not going to get nearly the
They're
same.
not getting any break. They're going to pay more.
They're going to pay more.
We're getting a lot of phone calls. A lot of our employees looking to change their W-2s.
Yeah, and we're going to go into the budget.
Increase their taxes because their taxes are going up. Their taxes are not going down.
Only going down for the low-income people and for the very high-end people.
So,
Well, I guess this is our first pass at it tonight, and we're going to meet again on this
Thursday,
Thursday.
6 o'clock.
Well, just for Thursday.
hour.
For an hour, so it'll help.
But my goal is to take everything we did and put it on that change sheet. and then I'll get it sent back out to you guys.
Okay,
So all the changes, ups or downs, will get added to here, and what accounts they affected.
okay.
So then that will come back down to your 6.72 presentation.
And then we have March 11th, next Monday.
Did we find a home for that? Do you know where we were meeting? Somebody else was already in here, the RTC.
RGC. Well, I always go to the annex, because that's a new place.
Somebody mentioned that we could always do the firehouse too, be upstairs in the firehouse.
Yeah, I think the annex would be a good place.
We go to the library.
Problem with that is we don't have any
Yeah, right.
recording. So taking these meetings out somewhere else,
Yeah.
the concern is that we don't have any recording.
Yeah.
So that would be my concern.
Well,
Could we ask the RTC to go somewhere else?
maybe we
Would
could
they be
ask the
willing to do
RTC to go to the annex.
that? They'd be willing to do that?
Why not?
I don't know. I don't know who to ask, but
I do.
I think-
I'll reach, I'll call them
I
up.
think it's important that we're here and recorded.
Yeah. I
Our
agree with
budget.
what you're saying, yeah. Okay.
The other, I don't think we mentioned it, but there was the 61,000 you said for the dog pound to fix that.
Well, that's in CIP.
Well, that's in CIP. Okay,
That was part of CIP.
okay,
They were funding 20 of the 61
okay.
as part of CIP. But that's what we cut $624,000 out of.
Right, okay. But then we also have to get connected on the CIP budget to decide on which items should be put in, right?
Well, I think usually what happens is the budget's approved by the town. And then you know how much money is available for CIP in the upcoming fiscal year. And that's usually when the CIP committee gets together and does it. But you're right, that the,
Should we make a recommendation to them?
I was just gonna say that. I will tell you, we should have some kind of list because you cut $624,000 out of that.
Yeah,
And in the budget mailer, we should really have a list of what we're thinking is covered. So that people know
Yeah.
what's not covered
Yeah.
by that cut. I mean, that's a huge cut, it's almost half of it,
And
so.
they're the advisory board, but we're the ones that are obligated to make a decision on what we think is the right things to put in there. And that's
CIP.
Yeah,
Yeah,
CIP.
you're right.
And
we should go to that.
we should do that, so we need to do that pretty quick to go through it.
Well, that definitely can be part of one of these budget discussions, I think.
you want to prioritize.
Yeah.
Yeah, that if we're only
What-
giving them
which ones we would like
883,
to- we want to take out.
how do we want it spent?
Well, we already took out.
Right, that's what they're saying.
600,000.
No, I
We're
know,
only giving them
but shouldn't we
883.
itemize where that money came from?
Right, what projects
Well,
of theirs that they
Like, for
recommended are
example,
you
the
not
100K in
funding?
there, isn't there for a 200K there for fire truck?
100,000,
100,000?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think personally, it's the wrong thing to do is to put away 100 or 200,000 a year for 4 or 5 or 6 years. I think that the way to get a fire truck, if we need it, is to bond it.
Yeah, in fact, what Amy's, we're going to talk about the next Board of Selectmen meeting is the state has asked us to spend over $1 million on bridges and roads and things that need it, the culverts.
Yeah, it's just bridges.
Bridges,
They got
culverts.
four bridges that failed
Yeah.
their inspections that need to be taken care
So we
of.
got $1 million worth of
In the
bridges
state or in the,
on the
Our
town.
in our town?
1.2 million.
Yeah. And so, it doesn't make sense to go bond for $1 million.
No, it's just four bridges.
So we could now put the fire truck in there if we want, or maybe not the fire truck, I don't know how we do it, but we could certainly bond for, certainly more roads. And so I want to talk to Len about that, but we could bond for more money and that would affect CIP, what we do.
Yep.
So,
But I think don't you agree we should have a list of?
Yeah.
You have to. If you want me to put it into the mailer, I need to have a list.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is that 600,000 we cut out might not when you add up the things, you take out, they might not be the same amount.
Well, and then maybe we go back and we adjust the number. I mean,
Yeah, exactly right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Once you
right.
get a list
If we've
together,
taken our shot.
you right, you know what your number is now.
Yeah.
It's 883, so
Yeah.
you need to figure out how that's gonna be covered.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's one of the meetings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we can do that.
I am my CIP.
Yep, prioritize,
Yeah.
figure out what
Yeah.
they need. Yep,
Yeah, we can take, you should have this list here, and I can go Xerox it. This list here,
I have it.
Everybody.
you have that?
We all have that.
So
Yeah.
we can,
It's
it's
in
in
the back
the
of
book.
okay, so we can do it on our own.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're
Yeah.
gonna do.
Yep.
They get together and
That's what I meant, you can do yours, you can do
Yeah.
it, and then we'll see how close.
we'll get together and do it.
All right, and we can get together, well, next Monday night, maybe.
Yeah, when is our next meeting?
Thursday,
It's
but
at the.
Thursday, but it's just an
It's
hour.
only an hour in front.
Right.
But when is our next real meeting? Is
Would be next Monday.
next Monday?
Yep.
Can I just tell you, I think RTC comes here at 7:30. So you could actually be here at 6 again.
On Monday?
Yeah.
Well, we want to.
I think we need a spot we can spend more time.
Yeah, I'll call them up, I'll see what we can do.
Regarding the, trying to get with South Windsor on the Tyler Regional Animal Shelter thing there, do you want to talk to them in South Windsor, you want me to?
I prefer you, I have full platter.
All right, I'll see what they say.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
If you want me to, if I have to, want to get me involved for a phone call or meeting, that's okay. But,
All right. Okay. I just think that would be a better facility for us.
Yeah, I
Rather than.
agree with you, yeah.
Going back a number of years, they tried to do that with Ellington, and something fell apart. I don't know what fell apart. I wasn't involved.
And I think one other thing, you guys had asked for the amount of travel in the budget. We
Yeah.
have a total of $9,895 across everybody.
Probably, some of that might be plane travel.
Could be. But that's, right, not all of it could go away because we have town cars.
Mhm.
But
Right,
you had asked about the number. There's just one town car here
Yeah.
for use, but it seems to be fine. I mean, it hasn't not been available when somebody needed it as far as I know.
That's a more modern car, isn't
It
it?
is, it's a police interceptor,
Yeah.
2013.
Yeah.
I drove it to Southington, it worked fine.
Mhm.
I took Gail and went to Southington, so neither one of us was driving our own cars.
Even better.
Yep,
That's better for you.
yeah, I was fine.
Yeah.
Getting gas at the town garage was a little bit of an experience, but.
Yeah, I haven't done that yet. Wow.
We had never done it before, so. We figured it out.
So you now both passed the qualifications. test
Yeah, to drive the car.
To be an attendant over there to put the gas in the vehicles? Okay. Well, this has been good.
That it has.
It's been good. Got lots of information.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second that. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Very good.
I really did. Getting closer. Getting closer.
It's gonna be tough to,
Huh?
You did a good job tonight. It's amazing. It's actually painful.
I know.
Yes, it is.
The fewer people, the easier it is.
Nothing that's gonna happen.
Shut up.
That meeting, Bob, down in Hartford with PECD.
Yeah.